everyone. My name is Annie Nash. I am a Midwest Regional Program Manager on the Google for Education team based out of Chicago. Before we get started, just one real quick housekeeping note. If you are new to Google Meet Hangouts, please mute your own computer. And the best way to do that, really the only way to do that, is to go to the bottom of your screen. You will see a microphone, a hang up the phone symbol, and a video symbol as well. All you need to do is just make sure that the microphone is checked. When you check it, it will turn red. You'll see that that is a way to mute your own camera. That way we just make sure we're not getting any kind of extra sounds as we go through all this. If you have any questions about that, please feel free to use the chat. That's over on the upper right-hand side. There's a little chat icon. We'll be monitoring that. That's how you can actually submit any questions that you have along the way. So again, and if you have any questions about anything technically or about what we're talking about content-wise, please put them in the chat. So thank you all for joining us today. We're going to be talking about strategies and ways to support diverse learners while doing distance learning and using Google products. And before we go any further, I do just want to give a quick shout out and thank you to Amber Hefner and Lindsay Zilli from the IDEA executive team for having me here today and partnering with our team to help support all of you Illinois educators during this really new and just different time. So I'm going to move on and do some introductions. Again, my name is Annie Nash. I'm the Midwest Regional Program Manager on the Google for Education team. And I'm based out of Chicago, and I'm joined today by special guests and special education experts. First, I want to introduce my colleague, Laura Allen, who is the Senior Chrome Accessibility Program Manager, also at Google. And she helps build and refine the education accessibility tools that help support all learners. We also have Lindsay Zilli, the Director of Professional Learning for the Illinois Digital Educators Alliance. And we're also joined by Julie Powell, who is an instructional technology coach at Port Ridge Nile Community Consolidated School District 64, and Kim Darche, who's the instructional coach at Lamont Bobrick School District 113A. Thank you all for joining, and we're going to go ahead and jump in. And again, kind of before we really kick off into the strategies, we want to take a moment and just acknowledge that we're all figuring this out together during this time when coronavirus is sweeping across the globe. You know, as educators, you're trying to understand how to transition your roles and support so that you're reaching every single student. And of course, you know, most of you are doing this with little to no time to prepare, and often with minimal tools or just not enough tools. And there's no one right answer to any of this. We're doing this all day by day. Everyone is trying their best. So we want to make sure that everyone watching and everyone doing this work. Oh, yep. Is there a question? Sorry. Oh, I'm going to keep going. Doing this work out in the field, let's make sure we're giving all those folks some grace and allowing them some space to fail forward and to iterate. And secondly, encourage you all to be the calm. I know this can be a stressful time for your families, for the students that you support, for your own family. You might be feeling stressed at times, but it's important that we be the calm. A lot of people are looking to you as educators to help them through this time, and it's all going to be okay if we work together and create a community to support one another. Additionally, we know that you'll want more beyond just this webinar. So the Google for Education team, we've put together distance learning pedagogical resources for schools affected by coronavirus. Those resources cover distance learning, training and strategies, different product capabilities, as well as just tactical Google Education tools training. So for more information, please go ahead and visit goo.gle/edu resource page. And finally, we want to let you know that we're trying to make sure that this webinar is modeling best practices and that it was accessible in and of itself. So you'll notice that I'm trying to talk slowly. I'm a fast talker, so I'm trying to slow down. And this is intentional. We did not write a script. This is Google Slides capturing what I'm saying in real time. And we wanted to show you how we're doing this. So when I clicked the presentation dropdown in Google Slides, you just click into presenter view. After that, you will see that a gray bar pops up on the bottom of your slides. This gives you several different options, but the captions have the small CC symbol. And when you click into that, you actually have the option to choose whether the text shows at the top or bottom of the screen, and you can change the size of the text. So for this webinar, I went ahead and I chose the extra large text. Finally, we also want to let you know that as you support learning with Google for Education tools, that those tools support compliance with all of the most rigorous standards, meaning that they comply with FERPA, so the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, as well as COPPA, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act of 1998, also the Software and Information Industry Association guidelines, as well as the ISO IEC 27018-2014 data standards, and the Student Privacy Pledge that was introduced by the Future of the Privacy Forum, or the FPF. And so in keeping with the goal of making this presentation accessible for all, we're going to continue using slides captioning throughout. And so we're not going to be showing live demos. Instead, our goal is to share high-level strategies and digital accommodations and recommendations. And so with that, I think a lot of teachers have reached out to us. They're excited to get started in this kind of new world of distance learning for some folks, and excited to learn more about how they can support students through distance learning, but that it's really hard to begin that unless we feel like we have equitable access for everybody. We couldn't agree with you more here at Google for Education. So our goal with this webinar, we really wanted to help equip you so that you can really make sure that you're working towards supporting all of your students during this time. Okay, and with that, I'm going to turn this over to Kim. Just the structure of the webinar going forward is we're going to share high-level goals, and then our guests, Kim, Julie, and Lindsay, will be chiming in to share some of their lived experiences being in the classroom and as coaches. So Kim, go ahead.
Kim, I think you might be on mute.
Good thing. So I know what I'm doing, obviously, you could tell. So I have been a coach for about 15 years, and I've always realized when it comes to accessibility and everything, it's never just the students who are in special ed. You're going to find the tools that we talk about today are really going to run your gamut of students who need to have different learning styles or different ways that they like to receive or push out their knowledge to all of you.
Cool. And Laura, I'll go ahead and let you kind of share some of the actual features that are available through Google Tools, especially when it comes to students who might have low vision.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a lot of different features built into Chromebook accessibility settings that run system-wide. And this first set of tools is really kind of targeting those students who have low vision or any sort of visual impairments. And there are a lot of different ways to increase the size of content on a Chromebook. So we'll start with that. So you can make everything within the browser or a given app larger by pressing Control and the plus key, or Control minus to decrease. You can also make everything on the screen larger, including the bottom shelf of app icons and the system settings and the Chrome tabs, for example, by simply adding Shift into the mix. So Control Shift plus will make everything larger incrementally, and Control Shift minus will make everything smaller. But for a lot of students, particularly those with low vision, who need higher levels of zoom, they might benefit from taking a look at the Chromebook accessibility magnification settings. And this is available. A lot of the features that we're going to talk about moving forward in this presentation are available in the Chromebook accessibility settings. So if you go into settings and then under advanced, you'll see a section for manage accessibility features, and that's where you'll be able to access a whole bunch of these different features and functionalities. So we have two different magnifiers that are system-wide. One of them is full screen. So when you're zoomed in, everything gets larger and you can use the mouse cursor, or if you're using a touchscreen device, you can use 2 fingers to pan around and move whatever's being shown. And that zooms all the way up to 20 times the default zoom level. And then for other students, sometimes they might benefit from a different form of magnification. So we have a docked magnifier, which makes the top 1/3 of the screen a magnified region, and then resizes everything else to fit within the bottom 2/3 of the screen. And then you can use your mouse cursor to basically control what's being shown in that zoomed in region and increase the zoom level again, all the way up to 20 times the zoom level if you choose. So in addition to magnification functionalities, there are also other ways to make different parts of the screen more visible. We have an adjustable mouse cursor in accessibility settings, and you can choose the size of the mouse that works best for you. We also have a high contrast mode, which will invert the colors on the screen, which you can either set through accessibility settings or through pressing Control-Search-H at any time to be able to really quickly toggle. And we also have a feature called highlights, which can be helpful for anyone who's low vision, but also we're hearing a lot of educators using this with students just to help them focus on some of the key parts of the screen. So with highlights, you can turn on a colorful ring or square that will go around the mouse cursor, the text caret when you're typing, or the keyboard focused item. So for example, if you're pressing the tab key, if you're working with a student who uses keyboard much more than mouse. So a colorful ring or rectangle will appear, and only when it's in motion. So for example, if you're using it around the mouse cursor and you're moving the mouse, the ring will be there for adding that additional visibility. And then as soon as you stop moving the mouse cursor, it will fade into the distance. So the intention is not to add additional clutter, but to just really help that increased visibility and focus.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura.
And I know my teachers always struggled with the invert colors. Like they would be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe the kids just did that. But it really is made not to just frustrate all of us in the classroom, but it does help students quite a bit and adults adjust that. And it's a really simple change that could be so beneficial to our students with visual impairments.
Especially for the students who have any sort of eye strain or light sensitivity. A lot of the content that we're looking at tends to be dark text on a bright white background. So sometimes it's really just helpful to be able to flip that.
And especially with kids being on devices more often for purposes over everything that's happening right now. It is a good recommendation for all of your students to say, hey, maybe after, 2 hours on the screen, or maybe, when you start your afternoon work, try and invert the colors to see if that helps not make you as tired or as frustrated.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Great tips. So our next area that we wanted to talk about was just the goal of helping students really improve access to all of the digital text. I think I'm going to go ahead and turn that right back over to you, Laura, to explain a bit more about some of the text-to-speech options that you can find on G Suite and Chromebooks.
Yeah, so within Chromebooks, there are 2 different forms of text-to-speech features. One of them is called Chromevox, which is the full system built-in screen reader. And you can turn on Chromevox at any time by pressing Control-Alt-Z, as in zebra, or through accessibility settings. And this is really more so intended for any students with more significant vision loss or students who are fully blind. and will read everything aloud to you as you're navigating through the device. And we could spend hours just talking about Chromebooks alone. So at the end of this presentation, we're going to link to some resources in which will include tutorials about Chromebooks and more of these features. But Chromebooks is really for the full system screen reading access. And Select to Speak is more so like text-to-speech on demand. So can be really meaningful for anyone who's low vision like me, who just needs some assistance with reading certain parts of the screen aloud. Or it can be really helpful for students with dyslexia or any sort of learning and processing challenges, or students learning English as a second language. And the way that this one works is a little icon will appear once it's on in the lower right corner near where the system menu and the time and battery live. And you can basically just click or tap on that icon and then drag a box around any content that you want read aloud, whether that's one single line, a whole paragraph, a set of graphics or icons, and it will just basically read only that text aloud. And there's word-by-word highlighting available as it reads, and you can change the highlight color within settings if that's better for certain students.
Awesome. Okay. All right. The next goal we wanted to cover was how can you help students with just overall executive functioning challenges? Julie, I'll let you go ahead and take this one.
Okay, thanks. So this is something that I cover in classrooms regularly, and not just when we're distance learning. All of our kids, I'm sorry, not all of our kids, a lot of our kids struggle with, how do we manage all the things going on? So a couple of things, and I'll drop some resources in the chat. I have a Google Keep and Google Task presentation that I share with the kids on just how to make a Google Keep and how to put a reminder on it, and really using those digital tools to help remind us when we need to do things. Calendar is great in how it works with Google Classroom as well. If you have used Google Classroom before, when you assign a due date to an assignment, it automatically populates on the student's Google Calendar. And that's just helpful for them to kind of keep track of things, especially when they're not having these daily reminders in person and seeing things written on a board. The other thing that's great is Google Forms. I did a Google Forms for Culture and Community thing for IDEA back in the fall that I think Lindsay just threw in the chat there too. So these don't all apply specifically to this distance learning, but all of those Google Forms, if you click on them, you can make a copy for yourself and edit. So the first one, for example, is just a check-in in how are you doing? What's one thing you did today? And just giving kids those connections. I know personally, my 16-year-old, my favorite assignments that are coming from her teachers right now are simply check-ins and reflections where they get back to her. She knows that they're reading what she is saying and they're getting back to her. Even just digitally, it makes her feel like she's being heard right now. So Google Keep, Google Task, Google Forms, and Calendar, I think are all great examples for kind of how to do those check-ins and how to help kids just organize their thoughts and ideas and time.
And Julie, I just want to pop in real quick and say, I think it's great for us as the facilitators to also utilize those same tools to keep ourselves on a loose schedule. I don't want everybody to feel like they have to, have this really rigorous and regimented schedule, but using these tools ourselves, Google Keep, Google Check-ins, allows us to stay on task and kind of alleviate some stress and frustration before it presents itself. So I dropped all of Julie's resources in the chat. They're phenomenal resources. Thank you so much for sharing those. But like she said, you can make copies of them and, recreate them how it meets your learners' needs.
For sure. Thanks, Lindsay.
Awesome. Thank you both for sharing. I couldn't agree with you more that this is something that helps not only during distance learning, but I know personally, this is what helps me get through every day that I do work.
And I'm going to add one small thing.
Yeah.
What I love about Google Forms, and then when it comes to Sheets, is that I have notifications set up in my sheets. So whenever I get a new submission to my form, I automatically get this email. So maybe you're sending out an email that says, hey, it's Monday. Do you need to talk or have a meeting with me at some point this week where you just need a buddy or like, you know, a wellness check? Lindsay and I always do wellness checks on each other when things are going crazy. Do you need a wellness check? And maybe it's not a form or a sheet you're going to check every day, but you can set up email notifications, and it's pretty simple. It's really just under tools when you're in a Google Sheet, and it's a notification rule. It is so, so, so helpful, especially as your digital workflow is going to grow and grow and grow over these next couple weeks.
I have to add to that, Kim, then. So because I used to use the digital notifications on Google Sheets, but now it's built into Google Forms and has been for a little bit. So now on the Google form itself, you can click the settings and put in email for every submission. They made it even easier.
Wow, great.
Awesome.
Googles, I tell you.
Hey, ladies, Eliza has a question regarding what we're talking about right now, and she's wondering if this is something you'd recommend for kindergarten through 3rd grade.
I would say so. I think sometimes, you know, maybe they need a little more help with typing, but they absolutely still need that check-in. Just, do you need somebody to talk to right now? And actually, one of my slides coming up is going to be kind of how you can use some of the tools to even help with maybe those younger learners who aren't typing yet, but you could teach them where those speech icons are, and they could be answering that Google form with Chromebook dictation as well.
I
Great
think this is
answer.
a great opportunity for students who are one-to-one districts with Chromebooks to teach their parents so many things, to teach them about the calendar and give them an opportunity to say, hey, Mom, Dad, here's Google Keep, and I use it for my assignment notebook, and I have it color-coded. I mean, I think this is going to be a learning opportunity in both ways for parents or kids to parents also.
Awesome. Okay, cool. And I think we're about to go right into that next portion. So supporting students with written expression challenges. I think, Julie, I'll go ahead and turn that over to you to start.
Okay. So I did earlier drop in the chat when we were talking accessibility features, just a quick couple screenshots that I have shared with my teachers to be able to share with parents. Where do you find these features? Just where are they even located? It doesn't walk through what each of these features are, but once you find them, it's just a matter of turning them on. So one is the Chromebook that's system-wide dictation. Once you turn that on, that little microphone stays on your menu bar in the Chromebook. And like I was saying, in a Google form, you could use it anywhere, and the Google form will pick up, you know, what you're saying. So not only just for those younger learners who maybe don't have those typing skills, but anyone who struggles a little bit with those typing skills. And now that we're asking these students to type more and more with all these extra digital distance tasks, you know, maybe just a little aid and a break from some of that typing. I think a lot of us do the Google Docs voice typing already. That is also in that doc as well. I know that our students in school love that, but it's kind of just a visualization, because I feel like sometimes when the kids are in school, it's an adult who's directing them to the feature. It's an adult who's saying, click here and then use that. So I think maybe sharing that with your parents is, again, helpful in just, they're the assistant now at home. And sometimes some of these kids have been using voice typing, but maybe don't know how to turn it on or don't know how to get there. So kind of a help with how to use that feature.
Awesome. And Laura, do you want to dive in a little bit more to even more of the details around the different speech to text features that you can get in G Suite and Chromebooks?
Yeah, so I think you already gave a great anecdotes here, Julie. And like Julie mentioned, the Chromebook system-wide dictation feature is just Pretty straightforward. The microphone icon is there in the bottom area of the screen, the bottom right. You can click or tap that, or press the search key plus the letter D, as in dictate, anytime you have your cursor in any edit field across the Chromebook. And that's just pretty much straight voice to text. If you're working with any students who have motor or dexterity impairments, who perhaps it's not possible or it's challenging to type on the physical keyboard, they might be using the on-screen keyboard as well in accessibility settings. And the on-screen keyboard will appear anytime you put your cursor into an edit field, and then you can use the mouse or a connected joystick device or pointer device, or touch if you have a touchscreen Chromebook, to be able to type through the on-screen keyboard instead of the physical keyboard. So with that, there's also a microphone icon that appears directly within the on-screen keyboard if you're working with a student, again, who would benefit from kind of going back and forth between that on-screen keyboard typing and dictation. But then Google Docs voice typing, I do just want to call out, it's really interesting because it's not only the voice to text pure dictation, but it also comes with over 100 different voice editing and formatting commands. And that's specific to within Google Docs, but it is really interesting if you're working with a student who really wants to do a lot more using just voice. I've worked with a lot of schools, maybe who are working with students who get a little stuck sometimes when they're writing long essays. They can't really get their thoughts flowing. And the educators will just say, okay, let's open up this Google Doc, turn on voice typing, and just start speaking. Let the thoughts flow, and then we'll get into the formatting and such afterward. And I think one interesting thing about this strange period of time, when we're all home and trying to figure out distance learning, is that we have naturally, most likely, quieter environments than in the classroom with lots and lots of students at once. So voice typing and dictation generally might actually work even better for students at this time. So just wanted to mention that.
Awesome. Okay. Our next high-level goal that we wanted to chat with you more about was just how to help increase behavior support so that students are making sure that they're actually on task and being able to complete that work. Julie, do you want this one?
Yeah. So this is kind of, sometimes you have that TA or assistant in the room and they're going over and they're checking in with that student throughout your class. And so, how can we support that scenario as much as possible in this digital distance learning? So if you're setting up times ahead of time using that Google Classroom, so for instance, we're going to be working on this class at 1 p.m. You could be jumping on that document at the same time as that student and remotely adding questions, adding comments, and just helping them as they are working on that assignment. It would just have to be a scheduled setup time. The other thing that my district recently just looked into, again, in this last week, as we're all trying to figure out, what else can we do to support distance learning, is Google Voice. And so my admin has now turned on Google Voice for our district, literally as of this morning, and I am putting together training materials for my teachers on how to get on Google Voice. But I went ahead and played with it just with my personal Gmail and set up my Google Voice phone number. So for those of you who are not familiar, it sets you up with a Google phone number. You can make, and I guess correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I've looked at, you can make free phone calls as long as they're within the US. And so I set it up and I can send text messages, I can make phone calls, only now it's not coming from my own personal phone number. Because we don't have that phone at our desk. We don't have the school phone number. So we can still kind of make some of those check-ins, whether it be with individual students or with parents that we would be making in a classroom. But again, how do we support this from our home? So I am very excited to look even further into it. And it's something that we just kind of started looking into. So it'd be worth looking into your district as far as if you could get it turned on district-wide, or you could just make one personal on your personal Gmail.
And we've used it a lot even before this kind of new adventure we're all on. We've used it for our theater students to call in and practice monologues if they just want it to be voice. Our choir teacher has used it because there are some students who really are not comfortable with just video or with also having themselves on video for other tools. So Google Voice is awesome because I hope the internet stays for all of this, but I'm also slightly concerned that we might have to think of down the road what happens then. And Google Voice is still a way to check in without having to be connected to the internet.
Definitely. And I just want to also echo, Julie was talking about, the use of a Google Doc to use with perhaps a teaching aid and a student. And I was talking with one of my special educator friends who actually, this was before everything with the coronavirus started. She was working with a student with ADHD who was in her classroom and basically said that the student was just continuously interjecting and had a lot of different questions and felt like he couldn't really concentrate until his questions were answered. And it was really disruptive to the rest of the class, and the teachers were kind of considering pulling him out. And they decided to try opening up a Google Doc on his Chromebook and then also having a teaching aid in the back of the classroom, not even sitting next to or near the student. And as soon as the student would have a question, he would type it. And then with the real-time collaboration feature in Google Docs, the aide was able to quickly respond. And they kind of carried on that communication very discreetly and let the rest of the class continue on. So I think that example is really interesting just in the sense that that can totally be translated to distance learning as well. So yeah, I totally support what you were saying, Julie. I think that's a great idea.
And just to add off of that, I think a lot of people are uncomfortable with the idea of video conferencing because they haven't yet done it. Or, setting up these links to all of these websites. If you just start with the Google Doc as kind of like your chat window with your students, that's enough. So if you're not comfortable with going, full on Flipgrid or Google Meet, just start with the doc and see how that works. And you're also modeling with your students that you're able to take risks, you're failing forward, and you're meeting them where they're at as well. So feel free to just start with something simple and then build in more complexity as you get more comfortable with it and as your students get more comfortable with it too.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Next, we have about 2 more student-focused goals, and then we'll transition into some tips for all of the educators, just as you kind of build up your own practice of teaching from home. But super important is helping students take breaks. And so definitely want to focus on a couple strategies to help those students increase their focus throughout the day, primarily by doing some fun brain break activities. I think, Kim, do you want to share some of these? Or maybe it was Julie?
I don't know.
No, I got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Or Lindsay?
Kim's got the good nose example one, so she's on this.
So this is, Google has 2 avenues that I use. It's Creatability and then the Chrome Music Lab. And both of these have really awesome tools, I guess, to use. I feel like we overuse that word. Tools for students to practice music. But one of the great things is that there are some applications on there that you don't have to type with. You can actually just through your camera on your computer have the notes track your arm, or have the notes track your leg, or have them track your nose, which is super great. It is so fun, and our music teachers have used it for a while. Both are just, I mean, my own kids, and we try and like have this connection where I'll do one and then we'll have the kids try and replicate it in the same way so that they're playing along with that. Yeah, it's awesome.
I added on there too that Living Archive by Wayne McGregor. So that's also another Google experiment in arts and culture. So if you even just Google experiments, you'll see all the different avenues you can look. But that living archive by Wayne McGregor is really cool because you get to make a body movement, and then it finds where in his work he's choreographed that same body movement, and then you get to put together your little dance. And it's just another fun way to use that technology and get up and moving.
Awesome. Okay, cool. And then finally, last but not least, we want to talk through a couple different ways and strategies to help increase just overall productivity for students at home. I think, Kim, do you want to take this one away?
Did we lose her again?
No, she's on mute again.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Sorry. So many devices. I'm like, this is my slide. I don't know what you talked about either. But my one bit that I was going to add in here is that I like to help my own kids and myself work in 20-minute increments, because I feel like if I push myself through 20-minute increments, I can be really productive. So it's gonna be like, I'm gonna spend 20 minutes on email, and that's it. I'm not gonna do anything else. I'm not gonna look at any other screens. And I'm sure you talked about how to go into full screen mode. Did you already talk about that and I missed it? How to make them go into full screen mode so nothing else is going in there. So at the top of their screens, if they click the circle with the green, and then it just pops open and you can enter full screen, but you can also tile a window to the right or tile a window to the left. When I have committed to 20 minutes of something, I go ahead and just enter full screen. And I also use the one tab extension because I am a browser person. Like I have a lot. And I'm afraid that if I close them, I'll forget that I had to do what was on the tab. So I use the extension, which is the one tab browser. It takes all of my tabs and puts them in one browser. I go full screen and I set my timer for 20 minutes and I don't move. I don't do anything until I have worked through 20 minutes. And a lot of our students don't know that trick. So that's something I definitely like to teach them. And there's other stopwatches and timers for Chrome extensions that you can add in there. And I'm sorry, I came halfway through. So whatever I missed, I want to add in or subtract. It's up to all of you.
No, that's great. That was a great suggestion, Kim. And I think we have to keep ourselves honest. And especially during this time, it's easy to go down the rabbit hole and not ever unplug. So really hold yourself to some office hours as an educator, and don't feel like you have to work all day and all night. I think that's a tricky thing to get, to fall into. And so make sure you're heeding this message from Kim and saying, 20-minute increments is what I can do and what I can expect my learners to do, and don't plan for more than that. So it's all uncharted territory. So make sure you're taking care of yourselves as well too.
Yeah, love that. Love one tab and love the reminder on boundaries. Okay, so we're going to transition into just a few more general strategies to support diverse learners. And starting with optimizing your home setup. Team, remind me, am I supposed to be going through this, or Kim? Or I think
this is me. I'm here. Yeah.
Okay, good.
So it's really just about finding a place in your home that works for you and your students. So for me, you have to ask yourself, like, what is going to make it a place for you to be productive? So I get my water before I sit down. I go ahead and I like to be in a sunny room. If I stay in bed, I will take a nap. I will lay back and I will close my eyes and I will take a nap. So I find myself sitting at my island table and the chairs are there and my granite just happens to be cold. So if I ever need it to be popped open, if I never go awake, I just touch it because then it's super chilly, especially today. But it's setting up those boundaries. And we as teachers always know what is a really good place for the kids. I have a teacher who is like, oh, I'm not used to this. She's a very active teacher and she moves a lot. And I sent her a picture of those little bicycle things that she could step on under her desk as she works, because her goal is to stand for 3 hours of the day. That's what we did as teachers last week. 2 weeks ago. We walked around our classrooms. We were told don't sit at our desks. Now we're sitting at our desks. And that's a huge transition that we don't probably even realize our bodies are making, which is why I see Linz has her earbuds in and everyone does. But like I attempt not to, because I want it to replicate the classroom as much as possible. And Linz is pulling out the fidget toy.
Yeah.
I could see.
Also, keep in mind I have 4 kids, so if I don't have these earbuds in, you're hearing a lot of other things. Yes, this is the Kim Darche special. The fidget toys are definitely essential, not just for our learners to have, but also for adults to have. I mean, I have these at every one of my PD sessions. It's just to have something to be doing with your hands, something to keep you focused and paying attention, you know, and just giving yourself that mindful break. I think it's important to have these kind of set up and dedicate a space in your house for yourself and for whatever learners you might have at your home, so that they know, okay, when I'm in this space, this is when we're going to be working and doing some learning. And when you're not in that, that's okay to, you know, play and have fun. So, you know, dedicating a specific place for your learning environment.
And especially for our middle school kiddos and our high school kiddos, they're going to go to their room and they're going to tell mom and dad, oh yeah, I'm doing my schoolwork. And then because I have them, they're going to come out 3 hours later and they have not accomplished what they need to accomplish. So as much as this is the recommendation we give to our parents, is as much as they're going to fight you, you know, put them at the kitchen table or put them someplace that is public. With their computer screen facing you, because you need to see and help them be the best that they could be at this time. And I go back to the ISTE standards about you are an empowered learner. I mean, more than anything, we have to remind our kids, like, this is the time to take your own learning by the horns and like, let's go for it, because you have this incredible opportunity to better yourself for you. Because the A is not important anymore. The missing 2 points isn't important anymore. But you have to be better 8 weeks from today than you are right now. And that's how you'll know that you have been successful throughout this distance learning.
Yes, shout it from the rooftops, Heather says.
Awesome. Okay, cool. All right, we have a few additional just overall teaching tips that I'm gonna let the panel talk through.
So going along with, you know, that finding a space to work, I've talked to lots of teachers recently who are like, how do I make this a video now? How do I, you know, we've talked about how to rig up something that looks like a document camera so that they can go through just even writing notes. And my recommendation every time is to make them short, make short videos, you know, do one problem, because then, you know, students, we're doing this at their own pace. We're changing overnight how these kids are learning. And so we really need to be mindful of that. We can't just recreate what we thought maybe was me standing at the board and working out these 3 problems, because the kids are not sitting there in front of you. So little screencastify, sorry, I can't talk right now. Screencastify. Yes. But making them short. I love that Screencastify has given their code to switch to the unlimited. I think it's cast-COVID. If somebody wants to double check on that, all capital. But then it makes your videos unlimited length. And I almost want to tell my teachers, don't really do that though, because 5 minutes is great. Stay under that 5 minutes.
I totally agree.
I would say 2 minutes, Julie.
Yeah, I said 3.
Yeah,
like
2. And for me, it's like, she's like, well, I have to talk more than 5 minutes. Great. So you chunk it up. So you chunk and say this 2 minutes is the beginning part of the fraction, or this is the chunking part, because that's what they're used to. And I always align it to, like, if I'm looking at Facebook and I come across a clip, unless it's Jimmy Fallon, I'm going to be like, oh, they're talking for 3 minutes. I don't have time for 3 minutes. Now I have a lot of time. But it's like, you have to put that in your own perspective. Like, I'm much more apt to watch a 45-second video than I am to watch a 7-minute video. It's true. And anyone know how long the Gettysburg Address is? It is about 2 minutes and like 15 seconds or something. So the Gettysburg Address is like 2 minutes. Trust me, you got a lot out in that. So that's my place to hang your hat on.
I'd also encourage you as educators to do one-take videos. So don't spend all of this time making the perfect video. It's not possible. It's a waste of your time. And then you're modeling to your students that their background has to be perfect and the noise level. So just try and do it in one take and send it out. It doesn't have to be perfect. And also, you're going to get better the more that you create them. So your first one might be like you're sweating in it, you're feeling a little nervous. But after you've done this a couple of times, which you will, it's going to feel natural. So just do them in one take, get them sent out, and don't give it a second thought.
Agreed.
Another teaching tip that I wanted to share is capitalizing on teachable moments. That's my big push in this time that we're in right now is don't feel like you have to supplement for curricular experiences from 8:30 to 3:30 every day. Instead, build off the things that learners are going to engage in while at home on a regular basis. So capitalize on moments in the kitchen, capitalize on moments when they're team building with their siblings. Don't just plan these rigorous math and reading experiences when you know there's going to be time that they're in the kitchen making a recipe, or, assign them to build slime if they're the younger ones, and talk about fractions and build it in that way. But really focus on life skills at this time and those soft skills, those social emotional learning opportunities, building off of teachable moments. So that's my big, I'll get off my soapbox, but that's my big push right now.
I love it. Okay, cool. Any other tips that any of you want to share just right now, especially when it comes to tips for just general education teachers who might be listening in?
So for me, what I just told my teachers on Friday, now more than ever, it's so important to update whatever device you're using and to update your Chrome browser. It is so, so important because we no longer have the luxury of walking our device, be it a Chromebook, be it a Windows machine, be it an Apple device, to the tech down the hall. We don't. So we have to stay ahead of the game. So no more saying ignore that update. You have to update. And in your Chrome browser, they make it so easy in Chrome to update, but remind yourself, remind the kids to update. And for you coaches who might be listening, please, please, please remind your teachers, remind your parents. And I'm starting to gather, like, through all of this, like, what is the teacher responsibility? What are the parent responsibility? What are the student responsibility? And for me, that's an all over responsibility, because if you don't, then you're going to hit a frustration level. And when the devices are our mode of learning right now, you want to avoid that for your kids and for your families as much as possible. So that's a huge tip. That's my big thing.
I love it. I didn't even think about that, but I'm going to now. My biggest thing I'm trying to tell teachers and trying to do myself, which as a coach, I tend to do a lot anyway. If somebody asks me a question, I'll take the 2 extra seconds to throw 2 screenshots together in a doc and send it to them, or make a screencastify of my answer. And so I feel like now more than ever, teachers need to think about answering questions that same way. If this kid emails you a question and you email him the answer, guess what? There's another kid with the same question, and now you're going to go email him, and you're going to go email the next one, and there's probably 3 more out there that are confused, but they didn't even ask you the question. So just making kind of your answers to things, or clarifying things with more context, with a visual, with a video. I started just one little website on my staff portal that is resources for your students. So if a teacher tells me their kid couldn't get into Brain Pop, I answer it, I put it there. Now all of my teachers have that to share with any kid who gets stuck getting into that. So kind of just take those extra steps and make it a super quick Screencastify tutorial, and you're going to be way more productive with your time.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay. Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Just one other quick tip. Thinking about just how to make sure that you're making your materials as accessible and as inclusive as possible as well. So, I mean, Annie, in the beginning, you talked about some strategies while you're giving presentations and using captions, and think about strong contrast in the slides that you're using. But there are lots of other tools. So, for example, for students who are using text to speech, you want to make sure that anything you're sending out is accessible to them as well, and you're including alt text for images and descriptions. So there are some really good resources in the Google Docs Help Center about this as well, about making presentations accessible. And I would just say kind of review those tips and just focus in on how do you make the materials themselves as inclusive as they can be.
Awesome, great reminder. Last but not least, before we get into asking you for your feedback and ideas on how to make things more accessible, and then some more general Q&A, a few more tips around just general organization of information. I'll pause. I think you guys will share some things, but if you don't, I want to just make sure really quickly that highlighting add-ons like text help. I actually just received an email from our partners at Don Johnston, who are behind text help. I believe, like so many other organizations and companies out there right now, that they are trying to make their tools more readily available. So I'll make sure to send or at least share the link that I received with all of you and some of the follow-up materials as well.
That is so awesome. If you've never used that, friends, like, it's so good. And I'll have to look and dig into that, Annie, to see if Equatio is also there, because that has been a huge help for our math teachers, especially when making digital things. So if they are opening that up, that is huge, huge, huge.
Yes, I think they are. I haven't fully clicked into. Well, I'll tell you, they have a nice form that you can fill out, and it's actually for teachers, anyone at a school, administrators, as well as parents.
Okay.
So yeah, I will make sure that I send that out. Cool. Any other tips that you guys have, and just in terms of general tools or add-ons that you might use just to help folks with organizing their information?
I have been loving the Wakelet extension because any website I'm on, I see something, I'm like, ooh, that's a great idea. I just click the extension and then I put it into my materials. So I've shared out for our parents where I've made one board that's just, Google Earth and Google Arts and Culture and other things like that to do, but then other boards that are I'm grabbing so many resources. So many people are sharing things. So it's just a matter of saving them however you save them, whether it be bookmarks, but I love Wakelet for the chance to kind of just throw them in some other folders.
Yeah, another just really quick, simple but effective is just the color coding that folks are using, and students in particular when they're using Google Keep. I've seen that's been super helpful. And if you haven't used it or you're not aware of it, there is also a Google Keep Chrome extension. This is really nice because students can pull it up and they can actually do close reads and take notes of informational text while they're reading that. So kind of really a helpful digital way of kind of doing that important annotation work as well.
And on the subject of color coding, we've heard some teachers, especially when thinking about Google Drive as well, in terms of we've heard the exercise used of making Google Drive the virtual backpack. And how do you organize? How do you think about really good naming conventions, really good folders? So just staying organized. And you could even think about that in creating calendar reminders of teaching students how to set their different colors for different calendar types, whether it's homework time or reminders or actual virtual lessons. So there's a lot there to help the students kind of parse that data.
Yeah, and for me, it's also connecting Google Classroom and Google Sites, because they're two different entities and they work hand in hand with each other. So you're not going to get the same organizational features in Google Classroom as you do in Sites, where you can pre-plan the unit and hide that page so you're ready to open it and have the navigation that students are used to. So Google Sites, since the updates many years ago now, is just such a wonderful opportunity to build out a learning management system that connects with your Google Classroom.
Awesome. And then just in the spirit of, the smartest person in the room is the room. We have all of you on the Hangout right now. We just wanted to share with you that we have a form where you can actually share your ideas with us. Laura, do you want to talk a little bit more about that form and where it's going?
Yeah, so it's a super simple form, just trying to gather insight from across the world. We know this is a new, highly unprecedented time, and quite honestly, it doesn't seem like anyone really has it perfectly figured out yet. So we have some ideas that we're sharing today, but we want to learn from everybody else and figure out what's working, what's not working, what feedback folks have for the teams at Google. So this forum is just one place to do that. And then as we aggregate more of these ideas across educators, we're going to be looking for ways to then also publish them somewhere. We're not quite sure where yet, but we're just looking again to crowdsource information and then help to distribute it soon.
Yeah, that's great.
Awesome. Okay. And with that, we'll open it up. I know we use the time really efficiently and effectively, I think. We have about 3 minutes left where we'll all be here. So if you have any questions, or Lindsay, if there have been questions going on in the chat that we have some time to answer right now, let's go ahead and do that.
I think you've stayed pretty current with all the questions in the chat. I just want to mention that I did drop the link to the PDHs in the chat as well. So if you're utilizing this time to also get some professional development hours, that's there. We will be sending out a recording of this webinar so that you can reference it later. You'll also have an archive of the chat that has been going through with all of the amazing ideas from people. And then the slide deck will be housed on our website at ideaillinois.org as well. So plenty of options for you to continue learning and share the wealth. And hopefully you have gained some understanding that you didn't previously have, because again, we're all in this together.
And really, don't be afraid to click on the 3 little dots, or I call them the snowman, or the 3 little lines, which are the pancakes, or the little grid, which is the waffle, because you just never know what's going to be in any of those. So I always feel like it's a treasure chest. I don't know what I'm going to pull open with that. So be brave. Trust me, I always say the people who know more are apt to break something than the people who know less. So go ahead and click away and see what opens up.
Definitely. Annie, I'm happy to quickly go over these resources if that's helpful. Sure. So we did want to call out just a few specific accessibility resources. So this first one is our Google Accessibility video series, and you can find it at goo.gle/A11y-YouTube. And for anyone who's new to A11y, that's our abbreviation for accessibility. It's just A and then 11 characters, then Y. So there are about 20 different Chromebook accessibility videos within that series. And then you'll also see a bunch of other videos across Google products as well. So if you're curious to see deeper dives into the various built-in Chromebook accessibility features, that's a great place to find them. We also have an aggregate of all the different articles across the different Google products when it comes to accessibility. So there's this Accessibility Help Center, which is available at support.google.com/accessibility. And that's a great place to start, just especially if you're looking at lots of different products at once and want to understand the different types of accessibility functionalities available.
Awesome. And last but not least, we'll just leave you with this slide, but like Lindsay said, we will be making sure that you have all of these resources, the recording, the slide deck will be posted. I will also share with all of you right now, but edu-chi@google.com, so edu-chi@google.com. That is an email that will go directly to me and the rest of my team here in Chicago. I'll make sure that that's posted as well. So if you are looking to just reach out to someone on the Google for Education team specifically here who supports folks in Illinois and the Midwest, I want to make sure that you and your colleagues have that as well. And I just want to say thank you so much to Lindsay and Kim and Julie and Laura for joining us, and for all of you just for taking time out and joining us this morning. Hope that this was helpful, and go forth and best of luck with all that you're doing.